All right. Hey, this is Malika of Evanston Live TV, and the mic is hot, Devon. We are on. Alderperson Reid, welcome back to Evanston Live TV.
Yes, it has been quite a while. So really excited to be back with you.
Yes, it's always a pleasure to have you on, Devon. You are definitely one of those community leaders who I truly feel from the heart is really for the people, and it shows. And yesterday was the perfect example of how you really feel about people, that you're not just looking out for self, you're looking out for your community. And I so appreciate that about you. So yesterday was progress. I call it progress. Yes. And I can't tell you, Alderperson Reid, that I got a lot of messages yesterday, people using the word progress. I think that was the word for that entire special meeting that took place Thursday, March 16th at 9 a.m. Special meeting, reparations meeting. Yeah, if it wasn't for you, that progress would not have happened. If you want to explain to the people, because I got a lot of questions too, exactly what took place yesterday. And there was a lot of people on that call yesterday, on that Zoom. I believe I heard the reparations committee say that's the most they've ever had attend a virtual meeting ever.
I believe so, yes.
Yes.
So what happened Thursday was really a group effort, from the community to the committee, but we were able to, for the first time, allow direct cash payments for folks who are within the ancestor category for the current reparations program. And that's really exciting progress. It'll help us make the program more efficient. Currently, with our community partners, we are unable to really help more than one person per month because we do not have funding to administer the program. And so SEPA has been our nonprofit partner who's been doing this work for free. And so with the current program, particularly with folks who are choosing, there are three benefits, if we all recall, that are in the current program. That's the housing benefit to pay down a mortgage. That's a benefit to cover the cost of home repairs up to $25,000 and to cover a down payment up to $25,000. And particularly with the home repairs, we're having difficulty administering that because the payment is not going directly to the recipient. It is kind of being funneled through directly to the contractor, which takes some management. So with direct cash payments, which the committee voted for recently, we will be able to more efficiently get those funds out the door and to the ancestors.
Yes, it was exciting. It was exciting news. When Evanston reparations was passed, you had community members before it was passed that was really trying to get city council not to pass it as reparations, to just pass it as a housing program, which is awesome that you are offering these programs to the community for those who need it, who want it. But we just didn't want it to be called reparations. But Robin Ruth Simmons has her definition of reparations. Others have their definition of reparations. A lot of people don't want their reparations in kind. They believe cash is king, and that's a way to build wealth. And then you have others like in Cobra, NARC, First Repair, Robin Ruth, some members of the Evanston Reparations Committee who think programs are best for the Black community in terms of reparations. So, I get it. I get it. I don't agree with that, but I get it.
I do want to add there really quick that I believe that reparations, that I agree with your assessment. Certainly there are different camps of what folks believe are adequate to call reparations and what's not. But I think what's most important to center is that reparations is whatever the injured party decides is reparations for themselves. And so I think for those who believe that cash is appropriate reparations, that is appropriate reparations for that person. For those who believe that, $25,000 for a housing grant or, home repairs, if they believe that is reparations, that's reparations for them. And I think that's the most important thing to center. I do think far more people think that reparations is adequate through a direct cash payment. And that's the reason that I'm fighting to go in that direction, because I think that's where most people are.
Yeah, most people were there 3 years ago. But yes, they did have meetings. The reparations committee did hold meetings asking the community what they wanted. Cash was always number one, but then, so in my opinion, this isn't your opinion, in my opinion, I felt like they were kind of sold on new toilets, new windows, or whatever is a form of reparations. But we can go on and on about that
Sure.
all day. We'll never agree on that. But yes, cash is king and definitely a way to build wealth. And if you're a senior citizen, that 25 grand cash, I'm sure they will definitely use it as, how they want to use it. Most definitely. Uh, One of the questions that I had received too, so I'm getting a lot of messages from the community in terms of the federal language that's in the Evanston reparations um, ordinance here in our local government.
Hmm.
With people receiving any of the benefits here in Evanston, is there language in there that says that any of this that comes from the federal government, if anything is coming from the federal government, will that impact those of us? Because majority of Black residents in Evanston, we're not going to see a dime, right? We're not. A lot of us are not legacy. Um, we're not legacy. We've been
Hmm.
here for many, many years and have poured into this community. And Robin Rue Simmons did tell me directly at a reparations meeting that my family wouldn't get anything, even though we bought property in '84, but that I had to wait on the federal program. So I'm thinking, is any of this going to impact federal? Is there language in the Evanston reparations ordinance? Is any of that impacting the majority of us who are going to have to wait on the federal program?
Yeah, there's a school of thought, from folks like Professor Darity, who believe that who are not supporters of local reparations because they believe that local reparations are potentially going to harm the chances of federal reparations, or that, at the federal level, folks may look back and say, well, hey, folks received, these municipal reparations program, our work here is done. And I actually tend to disagree with that pattern of thought, because I think about any movement and national bill that has monumental bill that's been adopted. You go back about a decade and you think about, for example, marriage equality. Um, that started off with cities adopting marriage equality laws, and then states, and then eventually the federal government. I think about, where we are now with cannabis legalization, where, it starts with cities doing it, then states, and now we're on the verge of the federal government legalizing recreational cannabis. And, you go back even further and you think about the elimination of laws around interracial marriage or other race-based laws. And again, it was usually cities that were on the front lines of being progressive, and then bubbling up to states and federal government. So I think the same thing is going to happen here with reparations, where we see that Evanston, albeit with the flaws that we have with our reparations, program, we see that other cities are now talking about it. The state of California is talking about it. And I believe that, once we hit a critical mass of cities and states adopting it, then we'll see the federal government follow suit and do the same.
Okay, yeah, I think the concern was, so none of the funds in Evanston reparation, none of that is coming from the federal government, correct?
No, certainly not. It's all coming from local funds.
Okay, I think people just wanted clarity on that to make sure none of it was coming from the federal government at all, not a dime, nothing.
No.
Okay, okay. I think that's key. That's very, very important. So for those who are asking me that question, I hope that clears it
Yeah,
up for you.
and I can say exactly where the funding is coming from. It's coming from our cannabis sales tax revenue, which the council allocated $400,000 to reparations from that, and then it's coming from now our real estate transfer sales tax, and particularly the increment above $1 million. We have a tiered system now with real estate transfer tax, and so the council allocated $3 million this year in real estate transfer tax revenue, $400,000 in cannabis sales tax revenue, plus $1 million for the next 7 years of real estate transfer tax revenue as well. So, we are going to have essentially, hopefully, certainly in the next 10 years, we'll have well over $10 million. And, depending on if we can get snappy with getting new dispensaries and creating a regulatory regime here in Evanston that attracts new dispensaries here, we can actually get up to matching that $1 million a year that folks expected from our cannabis sales tax. And so we may be able to get up to, $20 million total just from the investments that we've already committed, $20 million in reparations money just in the next, 10 to 15 years.
Okay, so are you all going to be opening up the application process again to allow another tier of Evanstonians to, have that opportunity to get direct cash payments? I mean, all the I can't think of a Black person who has not been discriminated against, who's not dealt racism in their life. I mean, we all deserve reparations. So
Mhm.
will there be a process where application opens up to people outside of 1919, 1969? What about
Um,
those who bought property here in the 70s and the 80s?
yeah, so the question of I hear two questions there. So one, uh, I think the first one I actually tackle is, you know, this this kind of almost seemingly, particularly to even myself as someone who I was born in the 90s, so I didn't personally live through that time period. But I think for most Black Evanstonians, we look around and we say, has racial segregation, have discriminatory policies ended here in Evanston? Are we looking around at a utopia that exists now? And I think the answer is no, we're not. And so I think really when we look at the period of harm, I look at one thing. So we're funding a reparations program with cannabis sales tax dollars. So then, and the reason we say, I think it's somewhat revisionist history, but the reason we say we're doing that is because we understand the connection between, the war on drugs and, anti-Black policies and racism. And so we see this as a perfect source of revenue to fund reparations. Yet we're not including the time period where the war on drugs was occurring, which particularly is from the 80s until today, but really, starting to curtail recently. We're not including, over policing as a part of the call for why we need reparations. While we know statistically that, Black drivers in Evanston, I believe, are 8 times more likely than their white counterparts to be pulled over. And there are all kinds of statistics that we know. And so, and then also at the same time, we're saying, even with our current reparations program and the housing grants and all of that, we're saying that it's based on a racist zoning policy. We have not yet changed the zoning policy that currently exists that creates that makes it less affordable to build housing in Evanston, particularly the kind of housing that back when these policies were first implemented, that Black folks were particularly relying on to make living in Evanston affordable. And so I think the period of harm continues today. And I don't think that we have done all we can yet to even stop the bleed, stop the harm. And so I think there's more to be done, and we're somewhat, the only reason I haven't, and I've introduced a lot of policy, the only reason I haven't introduced something yet, for example, for the zoning policy, is because we're, for some time we've been saying that we're going to be entering a comprehensive planning process, which would include a look at our zoning code. Also, Connections for the Homeless has hired an outside consultant to review Evanston zoning code and come back with a study that, of course, shows that it's discriminatory and too restrictive, and it does not aid in the creation of more affordability here in Evanston. And so, I am anxious to get moving on that, and I think I'm hoping that if we don't move forward on beginning that comprehensive planning process in the next few months, I think it'd be time just to make an amendment to our zoning code to make it less restrictive and create more opportunity for affordability, to begin to actually change stem the tide of why we say we have this housing program for reparations in the first place.
Alderman Devon Reid, always for the people, always for the people. So yeah, so you understand, many of us who were on that reparations meeting call, 2-3 years ago now, and we were told we have to wait on the federal program. That gave us no hope. But I'm serving and pouring into my community here in Evanston. So what? Only this select group of people you feel worthy? It was such a slight. So and then people were concerned, well, maybe we're not going to get anything from the federal because of Evanston reparations. So I'm glad you cleared that up, and you've given us hope that we might get something from the community that we actually serve in, our reparations, Black people. Thank you. Okay, that makes me feel a little better about what's going on. But Devon, I really want to thank you, because this has been 3 years. The Evanston reparations has been 3, and you haven't been on the committee when it started. But you had community members that have been pushing for the direct cash payments being an option. There are people who want the housing program, and I get that, I understand that, but direct cash payments should have been an option early on. We were trying to tackle the tax question early on, trying to get the committee to work on that early on and get us some answers. How can we get around that? And even if we can't get around it, people are grown. They can take care of their taxes, their own taxes. If you weren't here on this committee, direct cash payments would not be an option, because if that's what the committee, this is how many feel, including myself. There was no push, there was no plan for direct cash payments being an option from this committee.
Well, if I can, I do think it is important to highlight individual contributions, and so I certainly believe that my presence did bring something. I think it's, and I want to describe what that is.
Your presence brought a lot, and I know this is what I like about you as a leader is you try to not try to, you do. You work at relationships and getting along, even when people don't agree on approaches to issues and concerns in the city. You're not going. First of all, let me say this, and I've told this to Robin Ruth Simmons. I will always respect her. I think she is a phenomenal woman for making reparations a real conversation across the country. Can never take that away from her. Never. That was phenomenal what she did, and I think a lot of us, I myself personally, went to her, shook her hand at the beginning, like, whatever you need. We were all 100% behind Robin Ruth Simmons, like, yes, this girl is like amazing. She's gonna do it. and then something shifted. And then all of a sudden things weren't clear and there was confusion. We didn't
And I want
understand
to
what was
and I want to
happening.
describe what that shift is for folks. And the shift, and here's where I want to say. So I do believe that the committee in its entirety, everyone on the committee wants to have direct cash payments. I truly believe that even Robin believes in direct cash payments. And I think where that shift happens is folks become very protective of this thing that Robin was a national leader on, and that she got, death threats about, and she got, folks attacking her from both sides. Whether it's your, sometimes the folks who didn't agree with the current program, or folks who were straight up, racist and didn't believe in reparations at all. And so she's getting from both sides, and I think particularly, Robin and some of the early committee members became very defensive about making sure that this program, this thing that they created, survives, and maybe became overly cautious. And I think they genuinely believe that having direct cash payments is going to increase the potential for litigation with this program. And I think what my presence brings is a potentially more nuanced understanding of the legality here. And then also the boldness and willingness to push forward on our values with faith that this program can and will survive a legal challenge, and likely in our town won't be legally challenged, because there's, again, that nuance about taxpayer standing and who even has the right to bring a case, right? Some angry person in Alabama who just doesn't like reparations has no right to bring a lawsuit about how we spend our local tax dollars here in Evanston. And, it's a very small pool of folks who would have that right to file a suit. And I believe in Evanston. I believe in our town, I believe in our people. And I think we can move forward with bold measures with confidence in our people. And even if there is a legal challenge, I am fully, are there some potential legal issues with our program? Potentially. Race-based, any race-based
Well,
program.
I think, well, I'm always keeping my ear to the community. And I mean, there are some rumblings of potential lawsuits with the housing program from Black people,
Yeah,
not
I think
white
that's,
supremacists, not,
yeah,
so the program ended up being a liability anyway,
right.
without direct cash payments. But it was because of that money that was approved to give to the Weidmans, all hell kind of broke loose in Evanston.
Agreed.
All hell broke loose because you had, well, first of all, it felt like, and I'm sure you're going to defend this, but it felt like the Evanston reparations committee was kind of making up the rules as they went. So things were unclear on can renters apply? Renters don't apply. So you had a lot of renters out there who their understanding was they weren't supposed to apply. But then you had renters who applied, and now they're about to get paid cash, 25 grand a piece cash, so you got some renters that didn't apply who were like, can I sue? Is this a lawsuit? Because I felt like I wasn't eligible. Then you have the 10 or whatever the number is that of the first 16 who've been serviced with home improvements. Now they're sitting back like, so I got a new toilet and shower and a window, and I could have got cash. Now you got them upset, some of them upset. And y'all got like 500 people, 600 estimated on the list. It's a lot. And then do you still need to be living here to be eligible, or have roots here, have owned property here, but you had to move because you couldn't afford to live here anymore. So can they apply? Should they, do they have a lawsuit? You know, because they were told they couldn't apply, or the housing program itself is it's a mess. It's a mess. And you have Black people upset consulting attorneys.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't feel compelled to defend anything there. I do think that there were some mistakes made in the way that we certainly rolled out the program, advertised the program, the criteria for eligibility, the explanation of the program. I think we didn't do a great job. I think we did what is a good job or a standard job in the standard government world of advertising a program, but it really, with understanding the complexity of this, it being first in the nation, I don't think we took the time. There was, potentially a rush at the end of the last term of the last council to pass a program. And I think it was because they were concerned that they were concerned.
For it.
Yeah, they were concerned. They were concerned that they were concerned about that the program would not end up in the way that they envisioned it. And so I do think that we could have taken more time to roll out the program, to explain it, to let folks know that if you are a renter, yes, you can apply for it. Now, that's assuming you're a renter who intends to purchase a house or do some home improvement. I also think, particularly for I'll say, I do believe we need to reopen the application. Now that we are allowing direct cash payments for ancestors, I want to be clear about that. This is direct cash payments for the ancestors. I think we need to reopen the application and allow ancestors to apply who did not apply. I don't know if there will be direct cash payments for descendants. There may be, there may not be. But if we think about it realistically, just $25,000 per person, the city's annual budget is, somewhere between, depending on the year, last year is 400 million. Previous years, it's been 350 million. So we just don't have enough money to give every Black person in Evanston $25,000. We'll never be able to do that. So I think we need to be targeted in the relief, and particularly with direct cash payments, I think we need to be targeted. And I do think those ancestors who were here during the period of harm, I think the period of harm could be extended out further. I don't think 1969 is the magic year that had the discriminatory housing policy ended in Evanston. Again, I could say even goes up to today. But I think particularly, I think particularly for those, I think if we hone it in on what I think even we shouldn't call them ancestors because that has a specific definition, but that senior group, those folks who were adults in Evanston, homeowners in the city of Evanston during what should be a wider period of harm, yeah, those folks should be able to receive direct cash payments.
Yes, you all definitely need to extend that because it's like excluding the already excluded. You're excluding a lot of people who have served this community. I'm not saying you.
No, I know. It's the committee collectively, which I'm a part of.
Yeah, yes. And I'm going to let you go. I know you have a lot going on, but it was progress yesterday. And I don't care what you say. I think you and community members that never stopped pushing for it. Because that progress wouldn't, I don't care what you say, that progress would not have happened because it could have happened in the past 3 years and there was no sights of it happening. No sights of it happening. So accept it, just say thank you.
Thank you.
Just accept it. Just a couple more questions.
Sure.
The community was all, I got some questions. How the Weidmans, their brother and sister, they don't live in the same place. How in the world did two siblings get picked in a bingo lottery game back to back in a drawing? And I know they're related to Alderperson Chrissy Harris. She recused herself from that vote to give them the money, but yes, she didn't support your motion to amend the program for everyone. Because I like that you stood up for the people, because you know the Weidmans deserve they deserve their reparations, no question. You didn't want to stop that, but you were in support of that, but you felt if you're going to do it for two people, then you must amend for the others who are on the list. And Alderperson Chrissy Harris did not second that motion. And I thought that spoke volumes about her. And the Weidmans, my heart broke when Mr. Weidman was at public comment on February 2nd in the reparations meeting. He was pretty much begging a committee of Black people to give him his reparations. That was it like broke my heart. So, you know, it's a lot of questions around the selection process of the first 16. Can you explain how two siblings got chosen back to back in a bingo lottery game for reparations? And you weren't there for the drawing. I was there for the drawing.
Yeah, I intentionally, I didn't like the idea of the drawing, so I did not attend that. I didn't want to participate in what I thought was kind of I think we could have developed a much more thoughtful method of determining that list than the bingo lottery. As far as as far as the, you know, maybe our former mathematician mayor who taught mathematics at the University of Chicago would have a better explanation for the likelihood and the statistical analysis of how two siblings would end up back to back with each other in a drawing. But I think it's just happenstance, or, you know, statistical anomaly. That's the explanation I'll give for now, because I don't know anything else. And so I think I'll say this as well. I think, you know, I will say Councilmember Harris did ultimately vote for the revision to the program overall. And so the committee voted unanimously to do that.
On March 16th, she did vote, because the way you set it up, they would have looked really bad had they not supported you again. So on March 2nd's meeting, she didn't say a word for the people. Her family was getting their money. That's all that mattered. But the rest of the people on that list, she did not support you. She didn't back you on that. And to me, that spoke volumes. And that's all if ever was a time to speak up for Black people and all that we have gone through, that would have been a time to say, Devon Reid, I second that motion. Yes, I second that. We need to put that on the table, direct cash payments, especially for our senior citizens, because you all have explained many of them are passing away. They're not even living long enough to receive their benefits. If ever was a time, a Black woman person to speak up for their people for reparations, that was the time to be like, oh yeah, Chrissy Harris, that's the girl right there. And she said nothing. She sat there quiet. And I'm not expecting you to respond to that, because your colleagues on the council, but to me, that spoke. And that's why I'm thanking you, Devon, because if you weren't there, the March 16th meeting wouldn't have happened. And there wouldn't have been this progress. You know, they were talking about, well, the new toilets and windows, it's a good start. It's a good start. No, that was not a good start. $25,000 isn't a lot of money, but now you can say there's some progress. That's a start. That's a start. And Evanston reparations is having an impact nationally. I mean, you look at San Francisco, they went for it, 5 million each for our reparations. That they went for it. But then you had the NAACP, allegedly, it's out there, the letter's out there, that they pretty much want to model what Evanston did because of the whole NARC and COBRA first repair, because they're under the impression that Black people were happy with new toilets and programs as their reparations. And it was like you couldn't get people to even understand. You don't understand when the city of Evanston passed that housing program as our reparations, it had a national impact, because now you have local governments who are like, oh, that's all Black people want? Oh, we can give them programs. We can program them to death and never give them a dime. So now people are waking up like, yeah, we watered down reparations across the country. Look, San Francisco was gonna fight for that 5 million, or at least come close to it. And now you got the NAACP going against their own people to say, no, programs is best for you. You don't,
Yeah,
do you think Evanston had any influence on what happened in San Francisco?
Certainly. I'll say I fully agree with you. I get frustrated with, and I'm not saying on this particular issue, but on all sorts of issues with my colleagues all the time, where they end up. But and I certainly agree that Evanston's choice to move forward with a housing program is not the choice that I would have moved forward with. I support it as it is, but I certainly think we need to expand it, as I've clearly stated before. But what I think the way that I was able to get direct cash payments move forward on the 16th, the way I've been able to get many things passed, controversial, tough things passed, over the last 2 years in office, is because I truly believe all of my colleagues and all of the people on the reparations committee, whatever, are folks who are looking out from their viewpoint for the best interest of the Black community in Evanston, or for the city of Evanston broadly, if I'm talking about some of my other colleagues. But I do think sometimes, because of potentially, everyone has their realm of expertise and their realm of life experiences. And so folks approach this work from that standpoint. And some of my colleagues on the reparations committee don't have the same. I'm obviously not a lawyer, but
you should have been.
I served as the city clerk, and where I served as the election official, and election law was a huge part of that, as well as the Freedom of Information Act, and having a deep understanding of how the relationship between legal cases and policy is something that I've worked on quite a bit over almost a decade in public service. And I think that experience makes me more comfortable moving forward with a more bold vision than some of my colleagues. And I think it's a lack of experience and understanding of a very kind of narrow field of law. Municipal law is a kind of weird space. And I think it's a lack of experience and understanding there that leads folks to be overly cautious. But they're really doing it from a place of trying to protect the program, trying to protect Black folks, trying to not have Evanston be the place where we tried reparations, somebody challenged it in court and blew up reparations nationally, and killed the movement. And so I think that's what folks are trying to protect. And I think if we look at it from that standpoint, and that's how I view it, understanding that they're trying to protect that and addressing that concern. And that's really what I tried to focus in on, and with, particularly with Carlos. Again, someone who believes in direct cash payments, understands it's really about tying, you know, where we're trying to get to their values and making sure that we're putting our values at the forefront and letting our values lead rather than fear or even complacency. And so that's, you know, how I try to move things along. And I'm hoping that that will continue to be successful for reparations and will hopefully lead us to having a new application open for folks, particularly for our ancestors to apply for direct cash payments, to be able to more expediently get through this list so we can get to those descendants. Because I think where we're really going to have it's, I love our seniors, I love our ancestors, but I think where we're really going to have the long-term impact is when we can get this money funneled down to the 30-something-year-olds, the 40-something-year-olds, and even the 50-something-year-olds who are in Evanston now or trying to, you know, get rooted with either a young and newly developing family or more established family where they're trying to strengthen their roots here. And once we can get some of this assistance down to those folks, we will really begin to turn the tide on creating a more racial balance here in our city.
Well, thank you so much, Alderperson Devon Reid. We love that you are fearless. You don't operate from fear. We don't like complacent leaders because complacent leaders don't get much done. And I truly see Robin Ruth Simmons as a fearless leader. I don't think she was operating from fear at all. I appreciate your leadership. Some of the other leaders on the reparations committee, I don't know. I don't know. You know, I'm always have a heart for Alderperson Bobby Burns. You know, and Carlos, I truly feel is just doing his absolute best because he loves his people. Yeah, the others, I don't know what word to describe them. But thank you, Alderperson Devon Reid. Thank you for that progress yesterday. And I think the community really needs to know that it was your voice and your push that pushed that progress forward. So again, we thank you from the community. Thank you.
And thank you and leaders like you and folks throughout the community who have been pushing us from the outside. I think that's so critically important that, you know, this is a democratic system of government. Nothing happens without the community pushing forward first, or nothing should happen without the community pushing forward first. And so it really takes leaders like yourself, leaders all across our city and the Black community, particularly in our city, and particularly Black women in our community, to really push us from the outside and make sure that we're doing the right thing. So I appreciate you and all of the Evanston Live TV viewers who are engaged in the process.
All right. Thank you, Alderperson Reid. And you know, and it did get heated yesterday at the end. And you know, there were some attacks about the stuff we put out on Facebook, but I want people to know that Evanston Live TV puts things out to inform you of things that you don't know about what's going on. And that's what I do. And I don't think half the community would have even known what was happening with Evanston reparations had I not been putting those clips out. It's not to hurt anything, but people need to know. And I think it's just a tragedy when people realize things too late, when they realize things too late. But I want people to stay engaged. That's why I do what I do. I want people to stay engaged. So thank you so much, Alderperson Reid. And I'm gonna let you go. Actually, I'm gonna cut this off, but I need you to hang on for 1 minute.
All right.
All right, you guys, this is Evanston Live TV. This is Alderperson Devon Reid breaking it down about Evanston reparations. And you all please stay engaged because there's still some amending to the program.
There's still more to come.
There's more to come.
More to do.
So you got to stay engaged and stay on top of it and be present if you want the change. All right.